So you can tell, Sammy, that a lot of these fan bases are not handling it very well, that the Chicago Bears are currently in the playoff picture. And everybody's got to come in with their caveats. If this had happened, if that, listen, a couple of years ago, when I was trying to rationalize why the Bears could be good or what they're doing, people were like, oh, we don't want caveats. You are what your record says you is. You are what your record says you are. But in any event, the Bears are currently in the playoff picture. And I think that the funniest thing about all of this is Bears fans know what the deal is. I think a lot of us, despite the fact that we tend to be of the more at least I do, of the most optimistic. So I think most people are like, hey, we're in the playoff race. And we know that there are some teams that are probably further along in their progression as a franchise, that some teams are, a little bit further along than we are. And that's fine. I don't think nobody's upset with that. But for so long, while we were sitting here talking and looking at the Tankathon standings to see what draft pick we were going to get, it's kind of nice to instead be focusing on the possibility of the Chicago Bears going to the playoffs, or at least being in the mix. I think at some point you just were part of the cool group. Like when I was in high school, and like my friends, the DePaulo brothers, were very popular. Just being in their orbit was enough. And similarly, and for those of you asking, I did not go to high school in the greater Chicagoland area. I went to high school out here in California. But you just want to be in the orbit. And I think everybody's cool with that. Everybody understands what we're getting at. Listen, we just want to be invited. We want to be included. And let's include you in the show. And Sammy, let's go ahead and get started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome, everybody, to Bears Talk. That's right. It is time now for the collab between the Sick Podcast with Adam Rake and Just Another Year Chicago. Our friend Nick Rohde will be joining us here in a moment. But want to let everybody know that this episode of the Sick Podcast is brought to you by Windy City Sports Cards. At Windy City Sports Cards, we specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you're a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, Sky, or Fire, we have got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles. And in addition to the Chicago-focused items, if you want to go off menu, go try to find a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. card. Windy City Sports Cards are the guys to help get that done for you. Our guy, Big Mike, great. The best at what he does. Best at what he does, no doubt about it. And speaking of that, one of the best at what he does, one of the best content creators out there in the Chicago Bear sphere. We're talking about Nick Rohde. And Nick, how you living?
I'm living on top of the world. In fact, I'm living tied with the top of the NFC North, considering Lions fans can't understand there can be a tie for first place. We understand that they have the tiebreaker, but right. I'm on top. It's great. And we are living very well here over in Chicago. 6 of the last 7, as the kids say, Adam. We're on top of the world.
7. Right? Let's take a look at the standings. I tweeted this out yesterday, actually Monday night, right after the game. This is the NFC playoff picture. The Philadelphia Eagles, by virtue of their win over the Green Bay Packers, are now the top seed, knocking Seattle down a peg. The Lions are right there at the number 3 seed, followed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the LA Rams. The LA Rams, of course, have a better record than the Bucs, but of course, the Rams would be the wild card team in this situation. The Bears ahead of the pack. Now I'm happy to see that the tie, is coming back to bite the Green Bay Packers in the butt. But when you look at this, I talked about it in the open here a moment ago. What do you think when you look at this setup right here?
I mean, why not the Bears? Those are some pretty competitive teams right there. All of those teams that are in the playoff picture right now have been in the playoff picture for the last couple of years. But just look at right next to Detroit. 6-3, 6-3. That's impressive to say the least. And we've gone against some pretty good teams. We've gone against some okay teams. We've gone against some bad teams. But there's a 1-game difference between us and the Rams. There's a 1-game difference between us and the Eagles and the Seahawks. And I just seriously cannot stop saying, why not the Bears? And we're missing Jaylon Johnson and Kyler Gordon, which we got some good news on them literally 15 minutes ago. But this team is doing something special, and it makes going into Minnesota this upcoming weekend that much more exciting. Yeah,
you know what's funny too is when you look at this thing, we play a number of these teams that are currently on this list. We play the Philadelphia Eagles, the Lions, one more game with them, 2 with the Green Bay Packers. We do play the San Francisco 49ers. And do we play Tampa? No. We have Cleveland. We have Pittsburgh. But you know what? I know that people are sitting there and they're worried about, hey, you know what? Listen, I'm not going to concede anything to our friends, our Philadelphia Alliance. I'm not going to take that for granted. When everybody talks about the Packers game, though, and this is the funniest thing to me, and this is coming off Monday night's game, like we beat the Packers last year in Lambeau with an interim head coach. We also nearly beat them in Soldier Field. There was a blocked field goal at the very end that prevented a potential Caleb Williams comeback. Why should we be afraid of the Green Bay Packers?
We shouldn't. I mean, did they look that good last night? No. And also, I love when Packers fans freak out. Like, Jordan Love has a great game. He's the MVP. Jordan Love has a bad game. I saw someone say burn down Lambeau Field. I'm like, wow, you guys have no idea what it's like to be a Bears fan. So, I mean, the Packers lost to the Panthers. Panthers aren't a terrible team, but they're not great either. And
they lost to the Saints, though. So let's they lost at home to the Saints. So let's not talk about the Panthers being a good team, because a lot of people were getting on my case when I was like, hey, if you're coming in here talking about who we're beating, then don't lose at home to the Panthers. The Panthers are a good team. You're like, you lost to the Saints. You barely scored a touchdown against them. Like, shut up. But anyways, I'm sorry. I interrupted.
No. You know what? You said it completely well. Like, everyone just needs to shut up. Like, it's the NFL, and everyone, it's any given Sunday, and the Bears, technically, if we're going to make a day of game a Sunday, the Bears have had 6 great Sundays so far this year. And take away a few mistakes on Monday Night Football, the Bears would be at the top of the NFC North right now. Can't go back in the past, but that was also week 1 versus week 9. This team has gotten a ton better. Offensive line play has been great. Caleb's looked a lot better, on pace for 4,000 plus yards, by the way. This team is locked in, and they're only getting better week over week. And Ben Johnson is saying it himself too. And that guy can be the godfather of my first child at this point. This guy is just amazing at this point. I love Ben Johnson.
It's funny because I was relatively calm during that Monday night game, losing to the Minnesota Vikings, watching it with a bunch of people, places where we normally watch games. And so for me, people are like, how worried? We're fine. We're playing okay. We're doing okay. And then, ultimately, and I don't know if I was just too stunned to really care too much or anything. I don't know. But now looking back at it, like, oh my God. Like, I don't normally do that. I'm not like a big, if we could have done that, because there's a lot of things that have gone in our favor. We could have lost to the Raiders. We could have done whatever, a number of different things that were going on. But I look at that Minnesota game and I'm like, oh, if only. And then this week we're playing them and now we're missing some people. But you did say we had some good news. What's the news that's been happening?
So it just came out that Jaylon Johnson posted on his Instagram story training with the doctor for his groin. And the caption had to deal with him saying that, is his season over? And it had nah with a ton of H's. And Brad Biggs a couple days ago even wrote that if the Bears are playing some meaningful football, Jaylon Johnson's return is much more likely. Ben Johnson came out yesterday during his presser saying we are going to be playing meaningful football games in December. So that's great there. And then Kyler Gordon as well. He is able to return as soon as next week. His injury window opens up after week 11 versus the Vikings. So the Bears can get a huge boost to the defensive secondary, much needed. And even with CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's been a great pickup so far, they still need a lot of help there. And having those two guys back would be absolutely huge.
Yeah, that's one of the things too. Whenever I hear somebody talking about schedules or, hey, Jackson Dart, he was down, and you're like, hey, you know what? We have injuries too. And I know that it's more significant when it's a quarterback, but at the same time, it is still injuries to our secondary, which is very impactful. And by the way, and they're like, well, you would have lost. That's the one thing. Let me ask you this. Let's go back to what happened on Sunday, because we didn't get an opportunity to talk about this. I know a lot of people are like, well, if Jackson Dart, I'm like, Jackson Dart, before he went out, and listen, I'm not trying to make light of an injury. I know it's very significant. You never want to see the young man get out there and get injured, but he had fumbled on that play. Like, he had turned the ball over, and he had been living dangerously all afternoon. He had 2 interceptions that were dropped, and then he fumbles. So I will not concede. I think that Jackson Dart obviously gives the New York Giants a better chance to win than Russell Wilson. I would say the same thing for Jameis Winston. And we might have been fortunate there, but let's not act like it was a fait accompli that the Giants were going to win that game had Jackson Dart remained in the game, because the Bears had just turned it over. And I still believe in what Caleb Williams would have been able to do over the course of the game.
Jackson Dart's dangerous. He's a good quarterback, and there's a reason why New York fired their head coach right after that game, because look at his all-time record as a Giants head coach. He's been given these talented players over and over again, and either they continuously get hurt, not technically his fault, but he can't evaluate talent. He called Caleb Williams a coach killer, so look how that turned out. Literally, that worked out in his favor. But Jackson Dart was doing a good job. He was reading the field really well. He's dangerous on the ground. He's dangerous in the air. He didn't even have his number 1 wide receiver out there, and he had guys just ripping apart this Bears defense. And this Bears defense has Kevin Byard, Tyreek Stevenson, Tremaine Edmonds back there. Difficult to pass against, and they were missing some key players. That being said, he still was doing a good job. And, how the game folded is how the game folded. He wasn't out there to end the game, and that's just how Giants fans and anyone around the NFL has to take it. But he is a good quarterback. It drives me nuts when everyone's like, oh, Jackson Dart. He had 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions entering that game, passing. Yeah. And he had 2 rushing touchdowns against the Bears. He had a few more before the season. So he was putting up good numbers for a rookie that really didn't have any expectations. And Russell Wilson was originally the starting quarterback. So I think he was very impressive. And I hope he gets better soon. You never wish injury on a player, especially a young guy with a lot of potential like that. But watch out for him and Cam Scatterbo once they're healthy next year. The Giants could be a lot of fun if they get a good head coach.
Well, they're playing the Packers this week, so it's like, get out on that field as quickly as possible. Yeah, he's fine. Please. But when you talk about, like, you can't help that, Brian Daboll was putting him repeatedly in harm's way by running a lot of quarterback designed runs, letting him run the football the way that he did. It's one of those things. John Gruden famously talked to him before the draft and said, your style of play is not sustainable and something needs to give before he does, serious harm moving forward. But again, like I am impressed by him. I thought, actually, it's funny because Caleb Williams this season has already faced 2 guys that he pretty much usurped during his college career. There was Spencer Rattler when he was at Oklahoma. And then when Lincoln Riley was hired by the USC Trojans, it was Jackson Dart who was the quarterback who transferred out because he knew that Caleb Williams was coming in. So Jackson Dart must really hate Caleb Williams at this point right now, considering everything that went down. What about Caleb Williams, though? Again, a lot of people were down bad. They were crashing out before the game, before we even got midway through the 4th quarter. What did you make of Caleb Williams' performance?
I gave him a solid B. I think that we've talked about this on the show a few times, but he needs to do what he does in the first quarter and 4th quarter in the 2nd and 3rd. And yes, they call him the Iceman now because he's got ice in his veins. I think it's super fun to watch. I think it's electric. But this is, like we were saying, like John Gruden said, this is not sustainable. The Bears are not going to win every game in this situation. It's been great that they have. And it's great that he's led 4 game-winning touch drives this year so far. That being said, I mean, how long is it going to last? You can't rely on that every single time. There are teams that are going to outsmart Ben Johnson, even though he's been doing a fantastic job. They're going to get after Caleb Williams. He can't keep doing what he's doing. He needs to play a full game like this. But I'm giving him a B because the fourth quarter is impressive. You look at the numbers, over 125 total yards of offense, 2 touchdowns, 1 with his legs, 1 through the air, good quarterback rating. He stayed locked in. He believed in himself. And the other thing, too, is that we saw more leadership out of him this week. And I think that's the big one, is that with Caleb Williams, we talked about his attitude on the sideline. We talked about him being down on himself. You didn't see that this past week. You saw him locked in, looking at the tablet, talking to Case Keenum, talking to Tyson Bagent. And yeah, he might have had a serious grin on his face and wasn't high-fiving his receivers, but that's when the camera wasn't on him. He was much more involved on the sideline this past week, and he's really maturing as a quarterback. And if he can continue to progress and start doing this a little bit more in the middle of the game, Caleb Williams is going to be a lights-out quarterback for this league for a long time.
Yeah, he did a really nice job. And I think, too, not only throwing the football, and I know that some people will have some comments about whether his throws were good or whatever. That's to be debated amongst the experts. But I think by and large, he got the Bears in there. He put them on his back and carried them to a victory. And literally, you know what else? He also was pretty good fantasy-wise, too, with 2 rushing touchdowns. Finished with over 25 fantasy points for the second consecutive week, despite the fact that he had topped 25 fantasy points only once in his previous 12. And speaking of fantasy football, Crown Champs dropped the hottest thing fantasy's ever seen, a real handcrafted premium championship crown. It's just $2.99 a month per person. You can rack up points, win weekly challenges, get voted as King, Queen, Trash Talker, and unlock real-life merch by going to crownchampscompany.com. That's crownchampscompany.com. Don't just win your fantasy league, rule it. And by the way, I want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Huel, the best protein powder. And right now they're running a special. You can try Huel with 15% off for new customers today using the code SICKBEARS at Huel.com/SickBears. Fuel your best performance with Huel today. I go through these. I'm now onto my 3rd box. These things keep me going when I'm sitting there. Yesterday, I was at the commissary of the NFL. I did get a quesadilla, and I regretted it. Today, I didn't make that mistake. I had a Huel shake. Now I feel good about myself. I'm ready to go. Not only do this show, I'm going to be on the after hour with Jim Romer, depending on when you're listening to this. I've already done it. I have soccer practice this evening. A lot of things going on. So thanks to Huel for keeping me going. Now, speaking of some of the troubles that Caleb Williams had, some of it might have pertained to his receivers not catching the football. And I think it could lead to an opportunity for Luther Burden, because Ben Johnson talked about the fact that Luther Burden has been playing really well, especially when they put the ball in his hands, and perhaps he has earned more touches. How do you feel about Luther Burden moving forward?
It is driving me nuts that this guy is not getting more catches. I mean, 18 targets this year. He has the least amount of offensive snaps out of all wide receivers. He has less than Zaccheaus, by the way. Zaccheaus had 4 of the Bears' 6 drops this past weekend, which is unacceptable, which was the most in a game this season by any NFL team. So Ben Johnson's, even though he seemed pretty calm, cool, and collective after it, you know that he's looking at that stat and giving his psycho eyes, arms crossed, like, what are we doing here? I think that Luther Burden, we took him at 39 for a reason, and he's proven every single time he's on the field and gets an opportunity why the Bears should throw him the ball. The flea flicker, the taking 2 Giants defenders and pushing them 10 yards further down the field with his legs because he's so big and strong. 6 foot, 205 pounds. It might not be the biggest guy like Megatron, but that guy is crazy strong and athletic. 18 targets this year, 16 receptions. One of them was an overthrow, and his only drop was against the Lions in week 2 as a rookie, and it was behind the line. So really, I mean, take it as you will, but 222 yards, 13.9 yards per catch, and a receiving touchdown. Let DJ Moore sit. He is on the injury report every single week. Let him heal. Let Luther get good touches, but also gain confidence with Williams. And I think that's exactly what happened this past week. But these touches got to stop. And Colston Loveland has the least amount of drops between the tight end room. And yes, that's ahead of Cole Kmet, who has missed time this year so far, a game and a half.
Right.
And Luther Burden is the most reliable wide receiver from a for sure catches perspective. So the Bears need to involve this guy more in the offense. And this young trio of Colston Loveland, Kyle Monangai, and Luther Burden, they're all looking like superstar picks by Ryan Poles so far. And I know we've roasted him in the past as Bears Nation for picks that he's done. And I've always tried to look at the glass half full. But he's done great with this class so far, and the Bears need to make sure that this class stays involved in the plans moving forward because this is the future of the team. And I think Luther Burden should get more touches for sure.
Ozzie Trapillo could also be included in there as well. Who do you credit, though? I know that Ryan Poles is the general manager, but I think that, I think there's some Ben Johnson influence with these picks. That might be the guy who we should credit, or do you think that Ryan Poles deserves the credit?
No, I think it's Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson walking in from Detroit saying, you need players like this. Well, you went out and got a Sam Laporta 2.0, according to Ben Johnson and Colston Loveland. You got a Jahmyr Gibbs 2.0 and Kyle Monangai, or you could even say David Montgomery, those two had a baby, like right there.
Right.
And then Luther Burden is kind of like a Jameson Williams kind of. So, I mean, Poles has struggled in the past evaluating talent, no denial about that, but Ben Johnson being a huge help so far. And then you got to give credit to Antoine Randall out in that wide receiver room. We've seen growth for Rome, even though the drops have been an issue. He is leading the Bears in receiving touchdowns from the receivers. We've seen great growth from Dan Rochar, who Dennis Allen had an influence on bringing in, but Ben Johnson definitely wanted a guy like him. He's created 4 Pro Bowlers with the Saints, and he's created 2 All-Pros during his time in the NFL. Look at Darnell Wright. Look at Ozzie Trapillo, Theo Benedict, and how this line is doing so far. I mean, Poles brought in good veterans, but from a drafting perspective, Ben Johnson, those are his guys. And I think that he deserves a ton of credit for being able to evaluate talent because that's how he started his career, was evaluating talent. And then he moved his way to a coach and look where he is now. So, I mean, definitely a combo of both. But if you had to say who had more of the edge, I think it's Ben Johnson for sure.
Yeah, I kind of can. I look at it this way. I think that Ryan Poles is like, hey, I'm going to pick up a gift. Let me choose a gift on Amazon. And you're like, no. Just give me the gift card. I think Ben Johnson needs to say, just give me the gift card. I'll pick out what I need. And I don't think it's a shock that guys like Luther Burden is starting to emerge as like perhaps the best wide receiver in that wide receiver room. Colston Loveland is starting to really establish himself as well. And Kyle Monangai. But I do have to ask, and I know that Ben Johnson talked about this when he was praising Caleb Williams. He was saying like, Caleb, bailed me out too. I don't know that this was Ben Johnson's best called game. It felt like, and again, you know what, a rookie head coach could make mistakes. I think that he deserves the same sort of grace that you would give to any sort of player. I felt he got away from the run a little bit too quickly. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Swift did have a big day, but they really stopped using Kyle Monangai after the beginning of the game. He only had 7 carries for 28 yards and 4 yards per carry. He did have the lone rushing touchdown from the running back room, which is great. But they really got away from using him. They wanted to see what Caleb could do. I think that there could have been a much better balance of the run, especially on some of those first and second downs, and then they'd run it on third. And I'm looking at Ben, the TV going, Ben, what are you doing? It kind of felt like a Matt Nagy kind of moment, I hated to say, but not completely different coach, by the way. I think that he definitely got away from the run a little too much. And I want to say this, Adam, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, is that I think that they should have let Rashawn Johnson sit on the bench and call up Britton Brown. Guy had a great game against the Bengals. He had 5 carries, 7.4 yards per carry, his first career rushing touchdown. And he was just a bigger, bullier back than Johnson. He's an inch taller. He's 15 pounds heavier. And I feel like in that situation against that super tough New York defensive line and Thibodeau, Carter, Burns, I think he could have been used a lot better. Swift did a great job, though, coming back, but they definitely got away from Kyle Monangai. And it was just because that big, scary defensive front in New York just was stopping him much more than the Bengals did. So, we need more run this upcoming week against the Vikings. And if Greenland's out, which so far he's dealing with a shoulder injury, you need to pound the rock as much as you can against the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday.
Yeah, and speaking of which, obviously that game is going to be on the road this week, so you might want to make your plans right now to watch the game at Twisted Shamrock, the place to be for Chicago sports fans. Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, Sky, Fire. You need to be watching the games at Twisted Shamrock. They've got monster TVs in the private party room, main bar, and outside on their stellar patio. Of course, there was some snow over the weekend, but still, you're a hardy breed. You'll be just fine. Swing by Twisted Shamrock, where Chicago sports come together. And as a reminder, I will be there on December 13th, the night before we play the Cleveland Browns, before we head over to that game. The Sick Podcast with Adam Rake, meet and greet and live podcast at the Twisted Shamrock right there on Central Avenue in Chicago. I will be landing at a scheduled to land at Midway Airport around 4:30. And at that point, I will make my way over to Twisted Shamrock to go out there, not only order an old fashioned, hang out with each and every one of you, and then I will be going to the game on Sunday. But we do have the Minnesota Vikings ahead of us. You did mention running the rock. What are some of the other things that are important this week going up against the Minnesota Vikings? What do you think is the biggest key for the Bears this week?
You know, our secondary has been getting chewed alive for the pass. We're currently 27th in the league, I believe, against the pass. And, you know, Minnesota's going to look at that and be like, this is JJ's game to kind of break that 210 plus passing yard point. And the Bears can do it. I mean, they're averaging more than that per game. And I think it's unacceptable. I know we're missing a couple of guys, but Dennis Allen needs to clean that up. So the Bears need to find a way to stop that Minnesota wide receiver room. But honestly, keep doing what you're doing with Austin Booker, because that guy has been awesome since returning. In 98 snaps, 6 total tackles, 5 quarterback pressures, or 6 quarterback pressures, 5 of them alone this past week, a sack, a forced fumble. You need to get after JJ McCarthy and make him uncomfortable. And then also leave a spy, because he plays a lot like Jackson Dart when he uses his legs. He's fast. He's got good agility. If you leave a spy on him, you won't have that problem with the quarterback. And if you play man-to-man coverage against this wide receiver room, which you have Nashawn Wright, who knows all these wide receivers well and their weaknesses, he can kind of help be a player coach. So really, it's all on the defense this week. I think the offense is doing just fine. We've already talked about pounding the rock, and that's the only thing I would change. But the defense has to find a way to stop that Minnesota offense. And if they do all that, I'm not a coach, but if they do some of that, I'm sure it might work out in their favor maybe. Yeah,
we saw Justin Jefferson get 12 targets on Sunday, but not a lot of receptions. And he's not really had the chemistry with JJ McCarthy. And it's like, well, he will now. He will against Chicago, because that's just the way that our luck always goes. And I honestly, I'll be perfectly truthful. I really do like JJ McCarthy. I think JJ McCarthy is going to be very good. I know that the Vikings fans love to talk ass with us, and I'm like, I don't know why you do, because I've been defending JJ McCarthy, and I've always felt like people, like, the guy has played 4 games and people are like, bust. I'm like, he's not a bust. We've clearly not seen enough of JJ McCarthy, but I do like his attitude. I do like the way that he plays. I do like all the sicko stuff that he does. I love all of it. Like, it's similar to Jackson Dart, like the same sort of vibe, just like a crazy white guy just out there running around. And that's exactly what they need. And like, look, he's going to be he's a tough competitor. We saw what he did in week 1. So we don't need to be convinced of it. We've seen it, but we have to find a way to contain it, make sure that he does. I mean, if Noah Sewell can just make a tackle in the backfield, that would be huge. That is one of the things that's been driving me crazy. Wrap up, like, he let Devin Singletary get a 26-yard, whatever it was.
Yes.
Like, we can't be allowing that. So you got to clean that stuff up. And I know that people are coming after Dennis Allen, but similar to the offense, this next offseason is going to be one where they put a lot of resources into the defensive side of the football. We should not give up on Dennis Allen. We should go out there and expect the Bears to be a lot better and do all that stuff. What do you do for the games? What do you do? Do you go to watch parties? Do you watch at home? I do see your TikToks and everything after the game. Is that your building? Like, what are you doing?
So I do play-by-play for everyone in the blackout market. So I have my studio set up. I have a TV right in front of me. No sound, because if you do that, you get flagged by YouTube. But I just give play-by-play commentary. So that's what I do during the games. I haven't gone to a game.
Where can we find that though? Where can they find that on the Just Another Year Chicago YouTube page?
Yeah, it's on the YouTube channel. So 11:30 pregame show goes right into play-by-play. No episode change or anything. It's all straight through. But it's honestly so much fun, because then you have your own spin on it. And
Yeah.
It is kind of weird not hearing the commentators, because then you're like, huh, what happened here? Well, it truly shows you how smart Greg Olson and those guys are when they're called. Well,
Right.
also, they were professional players. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then right after, I'm on top of my building on the roof, running through the snow, screaming, and my neighbors are like, "Oh my God!" Either he's doing
Lunatic.
2 things. What was that?
They're like, lunatic.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, there he is again. Oh, he's doing that thing where he yells on Sundays. He must be talking to somebody upstairs." I'm like, "Nope, I'm just thinking the football gods for the Bears win." So yeah, that's
sure.
But I do go to tailgates. I try to go at like 8 a.m. I'll ride a divvy over to the south parking lot, park it, walk over, hang out with put claws up, bear down. I'll go to his tailgate. I'll go to a couple different ones. And then around 10 o'clock, I divvy right back to my place in Wicker Park and get right to it.
All right. So be sure to check that out this weekend. And for those of you who want to have a watch along, maybe turn down the sound on the Bears game and get Nick's channel up. Listen to his commentary throughout the game. It's much better than listening to Tom Brady poop on Caleb Williams. So why don't you go out there and spend some time with Nick over the weekend? We'll be back tomorrow with our friend Greg Braggs for Take It to the Rank, as we do traditionally on Wednesday, the live show where we will be answering questions. I want to thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon, wherever you are listening to us, whether you're listening to us as part of the podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that stuff. Or if you're watching us on their YouTube channel, thank you so much. Like and subscribe and comment and do all that stuff. So, Nick, thank you so much for being here. And speaking for you, I'm Adam. And that's it for us today. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.